In February 1990, a few years before Raymond Santilli distributed his alien autopsy film, which had allegedly been taped by the U.S. Air Force the day after a flying saucer crashed in the Roswell Desert, American and Canadian UFO researchers began to receive a series of strange documents in the mail. The anonymous author claimed that on November 4th, 1989, a flying object of unknown origin had been forced to make an emergency landing in the swamp outside of the small town of Carp, Ontario. Once on the ground, the UFO, still intact, was fired upon by 3 helicopters sent to the scene by Canadian and U.S. Secret Services, who were working together on this matter. Next, using the nerve gas Vexon, which is not widely known, a commando unit moved in on the craft, which did not fire at them. They reached the controls of the ship, where they found the bodies of 3 reptilian creatures. Pretending to be carrying out road work near the swamp, the Army discreetly moved the UFO to a secret government facility in Canada under the cover of night. As for the mysterious creatures, they were supposedly secretly transported to the University of Ottawa, where CIA physiologists performed an autopsy on them. This incredible tale was accompanied by the topographical map of the area, as well as a photograph of one of the captured creatures. When he got wind of this amazing story, Graham Lightfoot, a local UFO researcher, headed to Carp to investigate for himself.
I went to the area and on a Saturday, thinking people would be home, talked to 8 to 10 people, I just forget exactly, and asked them had they seen anything over the swamp. So I talked to people who had the best view of that, and nobody had seen anything. And I was getting a bit frustrated, so where else do I go? So I turned and go to the other side of the road, and lo and behold, found 2 people who had seen something. One turned out to be the Labinex, and she told me that a bright light had been seen over the swamp, as bright as arc welding or electric welding at nighttime, and it was at such and such an angle from her house. Later on the same day, I was further down the road and found a younger lady who also told me she saw a bright light in the swamp behind her house, and disturbed the dogs. The light shone through their windows. So in talking to those people, they didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. Interestingly, the story that was given with that report that there'd been a crash said that roads had been cut into the swamp to take out the downed UFO. And even in the winter when I first looked at that, there was no way anybody had cut a road into that swamp. And you know, I sort of said, well, that part of it isn't true. Maybe somebody saw a bright light, but they certainly hadn't cut any roads in to retrieve anything from that swamp.
Just when it appeared that this matter was fading into oblivion, further correspondence sparked the interest of Carp investigators once again. A year after the first anonymous package was sent, UFO researchers received another one, in which the author identified himself under the pseudonym Guardian, and said that he was a member of the Guardians of the Secrets of the Holy Grail. Other than a new story and various interesting clues, the package also contained a videotape showing a UFO that Guardian had filmed. Graham Lightfoot tells us what was on the tape.
One of the things that was sent out was a video, the VHS video. And on the label of that video was the name Guardian typewritten with a fingerprint. And that sort of indicated catch me if you can or whatever, but curious way to send something with no names. But the documents that came with that also referred to Guardian. There were various documents sent to different people. Some had a story, others had, or in addition to the story, had playing cards with little notes written on there that DND and CSIS is involved and things like that. Very curious, why would you send playing cards? It looked like a game. The only thing that made any sense was the background map happened to be the same area of Mannion's Corners that the '89 crash had been written about. The videotape that Guardian had sent starts off with flares or some sort of red light, 4 of them, burning, nighttime picture. So it's totally black background with these 4 flares or red lights. And beside it, stationary, is a large, I'll say a large object. The only way you know there's anything there is the fact that it's illuminated from underneath, and it's a very, very bright, intense light. And on top of this structure, because it's apparent something was there, was a rotating or a flashing beacon. That video was filmed by someone holding the camera on their shoulder, presumably, walking towards it.
Thinking that it was a hoax, Graham Lightfoot returned to CARP, accompanied by Canadian and U.S. researchers. He later discovered that there was a reason why they were being so helpful.
Bob Exler from the United States had been contacted, and he contacted MUFON Ontario, and we all met in Carleton Place. And then I led them out to the site. And there was about 12 or 14 of us that day. And my thought was that we would knock on doors to see if anybody would split up the area and knock on doors to see if anybody had seen anything back on August the 18th of the previous year. We didn't knock on any doors, which I thought was a bit odd, but anyway, we did walk around the area. A lot of the chaps were getting hot and tired, mosquito bites and all that sort of thing, and they decided we'd all go for supper into Carp, to a pub in Carp. Bob Exler and his son Dan said no, they were going to find the crash site and they were going to stick at it. Well, within half an hour, they showed up at the pub too, and oh, we found the site. So the rest of the chaps were not happy with the way Exler was doing things. He seemed to have all the answers, had found the site now, when nobody else even knew where to look for the site, and they more or less washed their hands of it and went home. On the other hand, I only live an hour away from that location, and I was curious enough to decide, well, I'm going to stick with it and see what's going on, see if we can find an answer. And since we had a, quote, expert from the US here, let's see how an expert does it. And so we spent the next day going around the area, and I finally convinced Exler, let's go and talk to Labenex, because Diane Labenek had seen the light from '89. I said, wouldn't it make sense to go and talk to her? Maybe she saw something. When we talked to the Labenex, and she told us that yes, she had seen this spaceship, she called it a ship repeatedly. She saw a fire in the grass, and yet it wasn't moving as it should if it was a grass fire. And then she saw a ship or spaceship land, which is what was in the Guardian video. In the Guardian video, it didn't land, it was stationary, it was already on the ground. But Diane told us that she saw it land, and it sat there for a few minutes, and she could see a lightning strike, sort of a zigzag line on the side of the craft, and the lights and so on. And after a short while, it took off. And then when it took off and disappeared, the lights went out, the flares. Now, that's her story, but what she described matched pretty closely what Guardian had sent on his video. And at that time, Diane had not seen the video that we had been given. So it made sense that she was telling a pretty good story.
As Graham Lightfoot and his colleagues inspected the site, They were unaware that they were being watched by another organization, also interested in the mysterious Guardian. Learning that a suspicious character was fabricating documents and attempting to pass them off as official reports of the Department of National Defense, the RCMP decided to carry out its own investigation. The RCMP came to the same conclusion as Graham Lightfoot, that Guardian was nothing more than a charlatan. According to the RCMP, the alleged UFO on the videotape was nothing more than a Sikorsky helicopter filmed in the dark. As for the identity of Guardian himself, Graham Lightfoot suspected that it was a UFO follower who was well known in the area.
I think I know who Guardian is. As I say, he's been known in the area for talking about UFOs for forever, for 40 years. He has not admitted that to anyone to my knowledge. I have tried to see him. I've knocked on his door because I think I know who it is, but he won't even answer the door. So I think it was probably done as a game. When I say game, it was just fun. It was something to do. Can we do it? And looking at the video, I'd say they did a pretty good job.